Hello everyone, I'm Xiaogan. Okay, next we're going to talk about behavior synchronization. But before talking about behavior synchronization, we must understand what RPC is, what remote control is, and what behavior synchronization is. And going further back, that is, we need to know that this character, that is, some behaviors, some characters can execute them, because RPC requires permissions to do it. Not everyone can do RPC. That is, some operations need to be executed on the server or executed on the client side, or whoever calls it executes it. So this part is a bit confusing. Then the result of our usual execution is that we execute it on the server, execute it on all clients, execute it on a specified client. At this point, we will add another layer. That is, calling and executing are different because we are not on a single machine. If it's a standalone setup, actually, calling and executing are both on your own computer. But once networking is involved, there are two computers, so the client calls the server to execute. So this is okay. Then the server calls all clients to execute. Then the server calls a specific client to execute. You just need to remember these three sentences. Because there are many combinations, if you don't meet this condition, it will be discarded. You just need to remember the correct way to write it. And then if you don't write it this way, then you are wrong, because there are too many incorrect ways to write it, and in previous engine versions, the engine sometimes gives a prompt, but the engine sometimes doesn't give a prompt, so you just need to know the correct way to execute is that when we are on the client side, we can call the server to execute some code, and if we are on the server side, we can hover the server, tell our clients to perform some operations, or we, the server, can tell only one client, one player, a certain VIP client, to perform some operations. So basically, we have three types, and sometimes it gets a bit complicated. For example, my client wants to call all my clients to execute something, or my client A wants to send a message to client B, then we need the server to act as an intermediary. So this intermediary process basically works like this. The client calls the server to execute action A, and then broadcasts the result of action A to all clients as client B. That is, broadcast all results B to all clients. Generally speaking, when we develop actions, this approach is quite straightforward. What we usually do is just the simplest version. We will use them in combination. But if you want to do RPC, or deal with this kind of issue, you will need some permissions. As for these permissions, we mainly divide them into two. Keep rules. That is, your role must have the corresponding permissions in order to operate. As for roles, we divide them into local roles and remote roles. In this context, don't think about server or client. Local means your own machine. You're now executing. Now this character, this machine, what kind of character is it? Then on the remote end, that is, what kind of character is it on the remote end? They correspond to each other in such a relationship. Then the local end and the remote end, they can be either the server or the client. So in this case, we call it the middle end, also referred to as our current end and the remote end, our middle end and remote end. The middle end can be either the server, also for the client. The remote end can be the server, also the client. If we are on the client, then our middle end is the client. Our remote end is the server. If we are on the server, then our middle end is the server. Our remote end is the client. So we need to understand this concept. And then as for this role here, it is mainly divided into these four roles. Let me pull up this diagram for everyone. Then we can, according to these two function interfaces, this is the actors, we can get our current local character as well as our remote character. Let's call this interface. So it's get. But I really don't like this concept because I think concepts can sometimes be very confusing. Then when we write it, actually I usually just judge based on the DS server. I generally don't write it this way. We get LocalRole. This concept is very convoluted because previous versions of UE5 may not have made some network modifications yet. So the lowest level we usually use is this. This concept is particularly convoluted. RemoteRole. So this role has several identities. Once you enable the network, it can obtain these identities. If you don't enable it, it might just be a long identity. We can simply demonstrate it like this. We can start by printing it out to see what its identity is. We'll just bring stream directly. We haven't enabled the network yet. We haven't enabled the network now. We'll just print it out and we'll know. Okay, let's give it a cube here. Give it a cube. So then we switch to another map again. Should be. We need to create a new map. I'll make a new map for everyone here. To the map. Put it into level 4. This should be L9004. Okay, in this map, we drop an actor, then we do it in a single way. Let's execute it in a single way first. Okay, you can see, he is the authority. This proves that he is service-oriented and authoritative. But in reality, in the actor, he actually did not enable these. Network, replication, and such. I can see. Let's find it. It should be here. You can see, this is a pure actor. And if we, in a client, check it, you will find that this character on the server side is hitting this server and the client is along, so we can see the server's authority. And the server is along, then actually they are two objects because they are not connected. They do not have a view of each other. If we check this here, after checking it, you will find it becomes interesting. You will find it becomes this proxy pointer. So what do these enumerations mean? Let's switch to here. We can see the enter hour here. This is the game mode proxy. Then we need to do it this way. We need to do a global search. We find this method. We jump into this delegate inside. It should be here. You can see the engine. Actually, also likes to use the then in this place, this enum. Obviously, that is to say, if this actor in the network, you have not enabled the network replication feature, then on the client side, it will be a long character. If you enable it, it will be authority on the server. And on the client, it is the simulated actor. So what is this? This is the one controlled by the player. AutonomousProxy. That is, it is the host proxy. We usually call it the host proxy. Let's continue looking below. Take a look at this. Right, so obviously we can print it out, and for everyone's convenience, let's reinforce and strengthen this again. Let's print it out here first. We need to spell it out without wearing it, otherwise everyone might get a bit dizzy. Let's first print the local one, then we'll print the remote one. So we can change this thing, change it to red, change this to blue. Okay, now let's take a look. You can see this is no problem. You can see on the server side, you can see this log printed on the server. We might need to scroll up a bit because the server log might be a bit earlier. You can see that the server's local role is authority. The server's remote role, that is, the client role is a simulated proxy. Then here, that will be, then on the client, its local role is a simulated proxy, and the remote role is authoritative. So this concept is quite clear. Okay, let's continue looking below. The most troublesome is Autonomies. Autonomies means it is the host proxy. I like to call it the host proxy. It's the pump controlled by the client player. So we just call it the host proxy. So that's what this is. Then let's continue looking at this table. That is, when we are on the server, we cannot obtain these two identities. Cannot obtain them because everything on our server is the most authoritative. Then when we are on the client, we will not get this most authoritative one because the most authoritative ones are all on the server. The client can only get this magic pointer or the host proxy. So that's what it means. Then in the remote case, actually in this case, we will determine whether it has authority. It actually determines whether this character has authority. In the remote case, that is, remote. If it is the server's remote, it can only get these two things. It cannot get authority, and for the client's remote, then actually the server can only get authority. So these two tables, you only need to remember one, because they are exactly opposite. Swapped. That is, swapped. Okay. This place is a bit bright. This authority is used to determine whether it has permission. We often use it to determine whether it has a server, but I don't use this. I think sometimes using this thing can be strange. There can also be problems, okay? Now let's verify it. What is host proxy? As for host proxy, actually, in this place, we can copy this part over. Let's copy 1. I'll copy 2. I'll change the name like this. I'll do it this way to make it easier for everyone to demonstrate. Then this is 004. Let's switch. Switch. Okay, here. We'll put it here. Let's change this mode first. Change mode to 004. Okay, this actor inside, we'll also change it to 004. Okay, so now let's first run this. because single player is all powerful anyway, so there's nothing much to demonstrate. But we still need to run single player first. Let's start with single player first. We are at alters. We'll take this. This place can be picked up. So let's take a look at the single player mode. What did it do? We'll use begin play here. Okay. Alright, now let's click to execute. And you will notice, right, it is. Is there maybe an object in our scene? There is an object. Let's throw the object out first. Delete it first. Okay, good. You can see that his current character is authoritative. His remote one is the simulated pointer object. But if we switch to this client mode, let's take a look. Then let's look at the server first. Obviously, the server's character, this actor of his now, it should have this authority. His remote character is actually a simulated character. Right. You can see the character on the remote end is a simulated character, and on our client side, on our client machine, its local character is a host proxy, and the remote end is authoritative. So make a distinction here. Then if we here, let's go a bit further around. Let's add another one. Let's take another look. This part is a bit confusing. Let's go back to the top first. At the top here, first, when the first player enters, then this thing, it is the same as the previous player we had. Because it is the first character, he is authoritative on the server. He is a proxy on the remote end of the server. Then, for the first player's character, on his own computer, he is the host proxy, and on the server he is authoritative on the server. Then, this next part is a bit tricky. First, for the second player, on his own computer, he is definitely the host proxy pointer. Then, on the remote end, it is definitely the server pointer. So what are these 2 days? These 2 days mean player 1's character on player 2's machine, player 2's character on player 1's machine. Then their remote characters are authoritative. Their local characters are proxy roles because your player 2's character is on player 1's side. Then you are essentially in player 1's world, simulating player 2's character, but it is through the server. So this simulated blame, they are the characters of player 1 in world 2 and the characters of player 2 in world 1. In this kind of alternate world situation, they are simulating such an object. Then on the remote end, it is the server, that is the authority. This part is a bit confusing, so everyone must really absorb this well. Okay, let's show everyone another very classic diagram. This actor role, obviously on the server, all objects are the most authoritative. So for these general objects, for example, some strange things, for example, some things you might need to synchronize over the network, like dropped items, and then on all other clients, it is simulated. So this is a character from server to client. The special part here is on the host machine, we will have a PM to accept some operations that the client performs. For example, moving, attacking, and so on. Then this character, its network role is called the host proxy, and only this host proxy, it is authority on the remote end, but it is simulated on other clients. You see, on player 2, it is autonomous on its own machine. It is simulated on the remote end. So this diagram is very classic, so everyone needs to understand this diagram. Okay,